Okay, we're at the NEC Classic Car Show in Birmingham this weekend, and I thought it's a great opportunity to show you around the huge amount of progress that we've made on my Mustang. So the last time you saw the car, it was in bare metal, and since then we've completed all the filler work. It's been painted inside and out and underneath, and it's absolutely concours original factory paintwork. So if we show you around some of the features of that in a second. So I'll talk through all the mechanical stuff, and then I'll pass over to Harry, who did a lot of the paintwork on the car. So underneath the car, everything is now, all the suspension is all fully assembled and everything has been painted accordingly. For example, the upper wishbone here, half of it is in a bare metal finish and the back half of it is in a satin black finish. That was because in the factory, they would dip the wishbone into a pot of black paint and pull it back out, and then you'd have half of it bare metal. So we've replicated that by painting one half of it a gunmetal color, not actually leaving it bare metal. I don't want it to corrode, of course. Similar sort of story with the rest of the suspension. And the bottom wishbones and these trailing arms here as well, they're in a bare metal finish. There's also various paint marks underneath the car and on the suspension components. We'll get a close-up of that in a minute, that signify various things. One of the things, for example, on the rear axle, you've got a yellow cross which shows the fact that it's got oil been put in the casing at the factory. And there's other marks that are put on there to signify how many splines are on the input shaft and things like that. And so all that stuff's on there. We've also fitted all the brakes, front and back. I haven't done the front calipers aren't on yet. They're being refurbished at the moment. Let's show you the engine. Okay, so since the last time you saw the engine, which was in the engine room, now it's here, obviously on a nice stand at the NEC. It's now fully assembled. It's got the special inlet manifold on it. That, like I said in the previous video, this is an original Ford Motor Company part made by Buddy Bar Castings back in the day. A very expensive optional extra that allowed you to have 4 48 IDAs, Webers on it, for full race applications basically. It's got the hypo exhaust manifolds, which are slightly different from the original cast iron manifolds. They're still cast iron manifolds, of course, but they're a slightly different design. It's got the hypo alternator with the oversized pulley. It's got the hypo front pulley here, which is a much chunkier thing than the original. Inside the water pump, it's got a different impeller. It has a smaller number of vanes to help prevent recavitation. And inside the engine, of course, it's got the hypo crankshaft, which has got the Brunel hardness test mark on it and the polished section on it as well, which indicates it's a hypo one. And of course, I also actually did some analysis on that, hardness testing and under a microscope to see the nodularity of the iron to make sure that was actually a genuine hypo and it hadn't been faked, which does happen, believe me. So basically it's all assembled, ready to go. Gearbox needs to go on and get it in the car as soon as possible once the show's over.
So I just wanted to update you on the paintwork that we've done for the Mustang. So we had 2 shows that we wanted to get the Mustang ready for, Goodwood and this one at the NEC. It's looking great. Put a lot of hours and effort into getting it to be where it is. We wanted to focus our attention on making the car look as original as possible, which is good because we have these original assembly guides which help us to look at the original finishes and make sure that everything is how it would have left the factory, and that's what makes the most valuable a Mustang. So let me talk through some of the things which you'll notice if you were to see it in the flesh. First of all, we've got the mirrors showing underneath, so all the runs on the floor pan, that's because it would have been dipped originally and then they basically just paint over the top of it. So you've got the engine bay colour coming in, which is satin black, and then you've got the white and the satin black from the body finish dusting on as well. That's all original features that we had to make sure were perfect. Then also on the chassis legs and the chassis rails on the back, you'll see these silver footprints, and that's where they would have been mounted to the skids when they went through the factory and when they got dipped in and all sorts. So we've included those small bits of detail just to make sure that it's perfect. It's got 2-pack 2K paint on, which was the original finish that would have been on the car. So that's period correct. Even up in the pillars there, you'll notice the overspray for the red dash finishes about between a third and a halfway up the A pillar, and that's exactly how it should be. Similarly with the sealer, depending on the colour of the car, the sealer would get applied over the top of the finish. So we've got the white paint, and then the sealer is then, beige sealer is brushed on over the top, and that's exactly how it would have left the factory. So that's why we've tried to keep that exactly right for this car as well. We've still got a little bit more to do. We've still got the back of the doors to paint. They've got to be in the red, the same red as the dash. But the outside of the car is spot on. These stickers are actually a decal. Originally they were a decal, so we chose to do that rather than paint them on. That's how it would have been. So again, we wanted to keep it the same. So it's looking really good now. We are going to obviously assemble the whole car and then give it its final polish, but it's nearly there. We've got a few little jobs to do. We've got to take the rear screen out. There's lots of scratches in the rear screen, so we're going to polish all those, so that's like new. Obviously got a bit more paintwork to do inside. There's a few little bits of paintwork to go on underneath, but the majority of the finishes are correct. But the things I really like is that we've paid attention to make sure that the original metalwork was done as it was in the factory. So you can see all the spot weld marks. They're not fake, they're real spot welds where we've done the repair panels. So when you look at it from the side here, you can see exactly how it would have been. Pete's also done all the suspension marks, original crayons, the original finishes and colours that those components were. Actually, when we were at Goodwood as well, the Coney suspension that we had came with a modern sticker, but the Coney suppliers were there and they were actually able to give us an original sticker that would have been period correct for when this was built. So even to that level of details, it's exactly how it would have been when it left the factory. In doing this project as well, it's been really good to meet people who appreciate what's happened with the car. So to try and restore a car accurately, it draws in enthusiasts who really know their stuff about Mustang. So we met one guy at Goodwood who was telling me that the reason the aerial is so long, I mean, it's absolutely monstrous. It doesn't really have a functional use, but in the period, it was a status symbol if you had a radio in your car. So people would take great pride in raising their aerial as high as they could. So obviously in a true American fashion, it's huge, so people would see that gesture of wealth that you had if you owned one of these cars at the time. It's the small details like that that really we get to learn about on these cars. It's really good. So here's a small detail as well that I like. So when the car is painted, the instruction manual says on a light colour car, like this is, then you apply a blackout strip. So what they're saying is this section would be body colour, and then in the factory, over the factory runs where it's been dipped, they would then put this strip of blackout. Without masking it, they would just spray it on. So we followed exactly what it says in the book to make sure that it is authentic and it looks the way it would have done exactly when Ford made it.